Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Once again, as we welcome you back to part two of tonight's edition of Wednesday Nights with myself, Inayet Wadee. And one of the major talking points in the United States of America has been the ousting of Democrat Ilhan Omar. And this is from a committee, and the excuse that has been given has been escalating tensions in the U.S. Congress, where Republicans had actually voted to remove Ilhan Omar from the House Foreign Affairs Committee over her past comments about Israel. Now, this is not the first time that Ilhan Omar has come under scrutiny, under the radar in the United States of America. And this evening, we are going to be unpacking what has taken place, and also at the same time looking at this blatant racism that exists within the United States of America. And my absolute pleasure to have two panelists this evening. We've got El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan from the United States of America, and we also have got Dr. Quraysha Sooliman, and always a pleasure having her with us as well. I see on top of the screen El-Hajj Mauri. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yes, Jazakallah khairan for your time, and also to you, Dr. Quraysha Sooliman. Always a pleasure having you as well. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi. Jazakallah khair for the opportunity, Inayet.
Yes, Al-Hajj Mauri, just looking at the United States, looking at the politics in the United States of America, and yeah, we're talking of Democrat Congresswoman, we're talking of Ilhan Omar. Now, the point I had made is she has been no stranger to come under the radar, under scrutiny, and the problems surrounding Ilhan Omar did not only come about as a result of her removal from the House Foreign Affairs Committee, but there have been many issues that have been brewing in the past with regard to Ilhan Omar.
Yes. My bottom line position on the topic at hand is that Ilhan Omar has been targeted because she is Black, an immigrant, Muslim woman. These are the elements that are front and center whenever there is a discussion around the controversies, the political controversies surrounding her. These are the major elements. The fact that she is a Black immigrant and she is a Muslim woman, and she wears hijab, and that hijab is it's a reminder, it's a symbol for those who have this deep-seated animus toward her and what she represents. I mean, she's been in the House now since, if I'm not mistaken, since 2016. And she has been reelected to that seat a number of times. And, so her critics, both in and outside the U.S. Congress, they latch on to any opportunity they see to attack her. And so, I mean, this, from my humble perspective, is at the heart of the controversy surrounding this Muslim congresswoman.
Yes, Dr. Quraysha, just looking at Ilhan Omar, yeah, we're talking about a Muslim woman, and in an environment looking at United States, looking at the political system, we're looking at a country and politicians that have been particularly hostile to Muslims for a very, very long time, and they continue being hostile to Muslims. And for a person like Ilhan Omar to find herself in that environment of hostility, and also at the same time being a Muslim woman, what does it actually take for a woman to be in that environment?
Well, obviously, she's definitely, of a very tough metal to be in that state, because the political scenario, I think in most instances and in many of the countries world over where you see a growing right-wing movement, and the United States is no different. We've seen the rise of the right wing. Also, there is exceptional pivoting towards supremacist ideology. And to be in that kind of an environment, it's actually really toxic. So the fact that she's there shows her commitment. The fact that she has not lost her identity, it shows her strength of character, her fortitude. But I must say that, it's, I mean, I wouldn't like to be in that position. Let me put it that way. I would never, ever be able to take the kind of abuse that she has faced. And I think for that, we need to recognize her strength. We need to recognize her commitment to the constituency which has voted her in. And I think they recognize the character. That's why, as Mauri Saalakhan has said, she's come back so many times since 2006. They voted her in. And they voted her in precisely because she's doing the job. And because there is no other way to take her out. The politicians who are controlling and have the power play, they do not have a way to take her out because the constituents have voted her in. They have to find some kind of a backdoor by which to reduce her, not only her potential, but to reduce her presence. And I think they've championed in on this at the moment.
Well, they certainly have championed in on that. And also, El-Hajj Mauri, you mentioned a black woman, but for us of particular interest in South Africa, she's African as well. She's got African roots.
Right.
And this is very, very important. She's African and she's Muslim as well. And when one looks at, as Dr. Quraysha mentioned, she is put in that position because she has the ability, she has the capability, she has the expertise, and that is the reason why she is in that position. But just looking at a Muslim woman finding herself in that situation, but at the same time to hold on to the values and the principles that are dear to you. And when one looks at America, for instance, the American involvement right across the entire world, the racism that exists within the United States of America, American foreign policy, and which is not friendly towards Islam, towards Muslims. How easy, how difficult is it being in that environment where you want to hold on to a value system, a system that is dictated by Islam, but you find yourself in this type of environment, which is very, very toxic in more ways than one.
It's very difficult. And I agree with Dr. Qurayshi that it takes a tremendous amount of intestinal fortitude, mettle, as our sister put it, for her to stick to it, to remain in that position, to want to remain in that position, to do what she can do within the limits of the kind of issues that she has to confront. She has been a lightning rod on so many levels since she entered the U.S. Congress. And one of the ironies is that, one of those controversies has been the accusation that she is anti-Semitic, that she has engaged in anti-Semitic tropes. But and one of the ironies is that in order for someone to make that argument, they have had to take a statement that she has made in the past or a position she has taken and just, really twist it and turn it to justify making that type of accusation. When, on the other hand, members of the very party that has attacked her for this, they have made, a number of their prominent members have made blatant anti-Semitic statements, accusations, insinuations, that were absolutely blatant. And this reveals the double standard that exists on this one issue alone. So yes, she has a lot of, she should be credited for having a lot of guts, a lot of, strong intestinal fortitude for just wanting to remain in that position, to do as much as she's able to do on the positive side. She has been, surrounded by a number of controversies, and there have been occasions when even some of her own Muslim brethren have criticized her for one or more of those controversies. But for the most part, in my humble opinion, the Congresswoman Ilham Omar has been a breath of fresh air, and a much needed point of contention within that that body, that legislative body that is responsible for upholding and preserving the Constitution of the United States.
Yes, and also, Quraysha, it requires courage, it requires bravery to stand up in the face of adversity, in the face of hostility. And interestingly, a refugee actually made the statement about Ilhan Umar, saying that a refugee girl came here and achieved the American dream. And even when she drew a lot of praise, there was a 181-year ban on wearing the scarf or the hijab in the United States of America. She drew a lot of praise for that as well. And at the same time, even during her victory speech, and this I found very, very interesting, she gave a very, very powerful rebuke to the Trump administration, where we know Trump's position was on immigrants in the United States of America. And she made a statement. She says, "Yea, in Minnesota, we don't only welcome immigrants, we send them to Washington." Now, this obviously a lot of courage, a lot of bravery.
No, certainly, I agree with you totally there. And not only that, you have to have the self-confidence to do that and to recognize that you're there for a purpose. Unfortunately, many politicians are not there for a purpose. They're there for a personal benefit. And that personal benefit is about being enriched or being recognized. They want to be, they want the pat on the back. They want to be part of the boys' clubs, access to the different social circles where they can have and indulge in their own whims and fancies. And of course, it affirms, in my opinion, the weakness of their minds. Because ultimately, I do believe that being in politics and serving the people should be, it should essentially be an ethical position. And if you go back to Islamic history, if you go back to some of our greatest scholars, I mean, they reiterate the role of the people who are in positions of power, who are serving in governance. We know from the Islamic examples, and I think that's why Ilhan's position is so dynamic, because it can draw so much that one can look at in terms of Islamic values. And if you look at in Su'al al-Akhlaq, where Taha Abdul Rahman, if he speaks about, the dispositions of governance, etc., he starts by saying there's no humanity without ethics. And clearly there is a deficit of ethics in politicians and in political circles right across the board. I mean, South Africa is no exception to that as well, and what we see in the United States. The fact that you're getting certain individuals who are coming back and they are calling upon these values, they're calling upon, they're highlighting the erosion of spirituality, morality, ethics, basically in society at large, which has resulted largely because of colonialism, modernity, the erosion of what it means to be part of a society and a community, to recognize the human dignity of everyone. These values are a threat to those who benefit from racist ideologies, because racist ideology, you must remember, is a very particularistic, and it's about favoring a particular cohort or group of people. And so when you come with these kinds of identities, when you re-encapsulate what it means to be a human, when you touch the hearts of people and certainly value spirituality, morality, ethics, this is touching the heart of the masses the world over, especially post-COVID, where people are beginning to look for something of essence in their lives. The alternate, the ones who have pushed away, who have set up the secularist state, they feel threatened by this. And so Ilhan is not only a threat as a Black Muslim woman, but she's a threat to a particular ideology. And so many people like her, I think, are beginning to feel the backlash of what it is to actually stand up, not against only certain particular people or against a state, an apartheid state like Israel, but actually to stand up against the very dominant system, the racist supremacist system on which the entire international system of states is built.
Well, certainly. And also, Brother Mauri, when one looks at what has happened to her now, based on past comments. Now, we know the Zionist lobby is extremely powerful in the United States of America, and she's often been accused, and the label of being anti Semitic has been attached to her. And looking at some of the remarks she made, she spoke about Israeli hypnotizing the world. Now, this provoked outrage, and this was even became more controversial when she attacked the Israeli lobby, IPAC, claiming that the lobby group is paying politicians to vote for pro-Israeli policies. But this is no hidden secret. We know the power of the Zionist lobbies. We know the influence they have on politicians in the United States of America, right up to presidential level. So, what was wrong in what she had said?
Nothing. It was just an inconvenient truth that was not to be spoken publicly. And it provided her political enemies with another opportunity to throw stones and to shoot at her again. I mean, this is a reality. What the criticisms against apartheid Israel are criticisms that those members of both the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate who claim to put America first. I mean, these are some of the arguments that they should be making as well. You know, I often reflect on the address, the farewell address of the very first president of the United States, George Washington. In that farewell address, he cautioned his compatriots. And this was a message that was intended to travel through the arc of history to, safeguard this country from enemies, foreign and domestic. You know, he cautioned in his farewell address to the Union against giving favorite nation status to any nation. And he went a step further to elaborate on what the dangers of giving favorite nation status would be. And subhanAllah, when you read just that part of his farewell address, and if either of you haven't read it, I encourage you to Google George Washington's farewell address to the Union and read it for yourself. I mean, what he said in that part of the address, it reflects in the most detailed manner the type of relationship that the United States has with the apartheid Zionist state of Israel. And when we look at the real everyday impact that this relationship has had, not just in terms of America's foreign relations, but also on the domestic front as well. It just gives a tremendous amount of weight to the warning that he issued, and with that in mind, those who are truly about the Constitution of the United States, those who are truly about defending America from all enemies, foreign and domestic, they should be thanking the few political leaders like Ilham Omar that are willing to, from time to time, say the things that need to be said. She's not the only one. But again, because she is Black, she is immigrant, she is a Muslim woman in hijab, she is a huge symbolic target.
Well, certainly is. And also, I think, Quraysha, when one looks at how selective politicians can be to justify their actions by removing Ilhan Omar and just attaching this anti-Semitic label as an excuse for her removal. Now, she had a tweet once to talk about on Donald Trump, where she mentioned, "You have trafficked in hate your whole life against Jews, Muslims, indigenous, immigrants, black people, and the more I learn from people impacted by my words, when will you?" Now, this was a tweet that went to against Donald Trump, and here she makes mentions of Jews. And again, your in your opening remarks, you spoke about this right wing mentality that has now crept into politics right across the entire world, whether it's through the Republicans in the United States of America, or we see it all over Europe as well. Again, these are people that show open hatred. They discriminate. They are blatantly racist, and all of that. And there could be no other reason except this racism that exists. And being a woman, I think it actually just makes it a lot more worse because, despite the West talking about women's rights and all sorts of things as well, we know what women are actually treated like and how women are actually seen, particularly in the upper echelons of political circles, the government, and even in business in general.
Yes, Inayet, you raise very many points here, and I would like to just try and address many of them as quickly as I can. The first is that we need to recognize that Ilhan is carrying perhaps some of the most contested identities that anybody can carry. And I speak about identities continuously because I think we should recognize the position that she's female. So gender-based violence, and of course we know how women are treated, and Maurice touched on this a little bit. She's black, and there's the dehumanization of black people has been a forever war. She's Muslim, and the rise of Islamophobia, and of course an absolute hatred for Muslims is another very contested identity. Then she's an immigrant, and we know the war that the white supremacists are leading against immigrants, as if to, I don't know really. It's mind-boggling, the smallness of their minds, as if to believe that America is a state of indigenous people. The indigenous people have been subjected to genocide. Actually, America is a state of immigrants. I mean, the majority of the people that are there are not indigenous people, and somehow they seem to forget that. So that's the first point. The second point is we need to recognize that the entire political arena now, with the rise of social media and with technology, etc., is an open glass house. It's like an open circus, basically, and everybody has access to that arena and can see what is happening there. So whoever is present there and raises particular issues will get the coverage that is needed. Or, you can't simply just move away. Perhaps, yes, some of the biased mainstream media will not show that on their channels, but there are alternate channels that are going to show what's happening on that particular platform. And thirdly, there is a new momentum in the United States, and I think that's perhaps what is the most worrying for all of these people who are anti-Muslim, anti-Ilhan, anti-human dignity, anti-equality, etc., is the realization that the majority of people are waking up to what apartheid Israel is all about. And they're recognizing the social injustices perpetuated by the apartheid state on the Palestinian people. They are recognizing and seeing the issues in the present as it is happening and unfolding. It is no longer the privilege of the elite few or the oligarchs to present media in a way that they want to. So indoctrination and you will get indoctrinated if you want to be, but if you're an individual who is seeking alternate news, you will find the truth and you can see it. Even if you don't want to hear it, the visuals are impactful. So these are all the things that are coming into the play here that is threatening this supremacist supremacist, extremist right-wing groups. And they feel threatened by the fact that it is also being said that very soon, if you look at the demographics in the United States, it's going to be shifting away from white domination. Now, being in this particular state, they have to find a way to continue and establish and secure themselves, what I call self-preservation. And they're fighting for survival within themselves because they're beginning to see it unravel. And it's just a matter of time. At some point, the United States of America is going to implode. What do they do then? They need to limit reasoning and they need to limit critique. That is crucial to the success of the reality that they have created. And that reality is about fueling war and intensifying fear in the people. Now, how do you limit reason and critique when you claim to be one of the most free countries in the world, where you say you aspire to democracy and you have free speech? You can't look like you're limiting somebody's free speech. You can't look like you're imposing censorship. So what do? You create tools to garner support and to avert accountability. And the tools that are used are very specific, most often through language and through the media, and it is achieved by spreading disinformation and mistruths. So political opponents, in this case, the Republicans, will capitalize on these simplistic distractions. And the distraction has been Ilhan is anti-Semitic. No, we don't have a problem with her. She's black, it's fine. We love black people. She's Muslim, it's fine. We love Muslims. Saudi Arabia is our friend. Qatar, blah, blah, blah. But they will use distractions. And the most obvious distraction that they're using at the moment is the language of anti-Semitism. And all of this can be wrapped up in a political term. It's also a psychological term, an acronym called DAVO, which is to distract, and then it is to accuse, and to reverse the victim and the offender. So instead of showing the truth of who Ilhan is and what she's representing, you distract. And then you accuse her of doing things and you reverse the victim and the offender. So now Ilhan is not the victim, but she becomes the offender. And this is typical Hasbara propaganda with the apartheid state of Israel as well, where they continuously present Israel as the victim and the Palestinian people as the offenders. The American establishment has done very many times, you're with us or you're against us. The American people are threatened, especially during the Iraqi war, to say that, this is terrorism. The Americans are the victims and not the aggressors. And so this entire scenario plays out like this continuously. And we're going to see it. But the good thing is that people are beginning to wake up to this disinformation and these mistruths. Unfortunately, it might not be soon enough. They might not be strong enough. But I'm confident that the good people will eventually cause a breakdown in all of this.
Yes. Also, Al-Hajj Mauri, when one looks at the reaction to this removal of Ilhan Omar, we find that her very own party, the Democratic leadership, although they accused the Republicans of a vendetta against Ilhan Omar, but at the same time, in terms of defending her, particularly when it comes to the anti-Semitic remarks and her position on Palestine and her position on Israel. We know she's even supported the BDS movement in terms of sanctions against Israel. And you've got a Democratic Party, a leadership as well that are friendly towards Israel, that we know what Joe Biden's position is, we know what Kamala Harris's position is, and a lot of the Democratic politicians as well. So what defense would she have when she finds herself where her very own party is actually friendly towards Israel?
To coin a phrase that she used a few years back, I think it was 2019, that began this onslaught of anti-Semitic accusation. It's all about the Benjamins. Really, that's what it is. At the end of the day, it's about money. It's about the influence that money has. These lobbies. One of the most powerful lobbies in Washington is AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, and all of the branches of lobby influence that emanates from that. This is what it comes down to. I want to point out something that I think is very important. While she has been removed from the Foreign Relations Committee, a very powerful committee in the House, she is on two other committees. She's on the budget committee and also on the education and labor committee. So, she still has some, some committee affiliated juice in the House, and she is continuing to have influence beyond the House. I mean, one of the things that one of the other threatening elements connected to Ilhan Omar, in my humble opinion, is the fact that her success in securing a seat in the House of Representatives and being returned to that seat by her constituents out of Minnesota has inspired a lot of Muslims in the United States, especially young female Muslims, young women, to run for office. And there has been an unprecedented number of Muslim women who have successfully run for office on the municipal level, in a number of offices in different parts of the U.S. I mean, there has been this, and many of these women that have successfully, Muslim women that have successfully run for office are hijabis, like Ilhan Omar. So, there's an old saying, blessed are those who forge first to lead the way for others. This is one of the most probably important accomplishments that Ilhan Omar has been able to achieve, and that is inspiring other young Muslim women to run for office successfully, and then to assume office in many cases with a hijab, and not being afraid to assert their Muslim identity. Now, with that being said, one of the challenges for our young Muslim politicians and some of the older ones like Andre Carson, who has been in the House for a number of years, and other, more seasoned in terms of age political leaders that are in local governments throughout the country, is to be able to maintain their principles, when it comes to, the really challenging issues that are confronting the better of the two Americas. We're not like, we're just like every other nation. As human beings are judged, nations are also judged, and we call ourselves, a nation of liberty and justice for all. But we have been far removed from that ideal, since this nation's inception. It's been a work in progress, and our young people that I see running for office and winning offices from city councilman seats to the Department of Education, to the various levels of political influence that in the state houses, both in the House of Delegates as well as in the Senate, the state Senate. You have a growing number of Muslim faces, and from my humble perspective, one of the greatest challenges that these politicians have, these newly minted politicians, is striving to maintain Islamic integrity in those offices. This is the only way that, they're going to be able to distinguish themselves from the run-of-the-mill politicians that run for office, as our sister correctly pointed out, for self-interests, to line their pockets, to prepare for the day when they leave office, and they want, a very healthy materialistic cushion to be able to slide out on. We want to be very different from these type of politicians. So that's the big
Well,
challenge.
certainly. But also at the same time, Quraysha, this actually exposes the hypocrisy of the political system within which we operate. Because in the case of Ilhan Omar, her remarks are being seen as anti-Semitic for speaking the truth. Yet, when one looks at the system within which the United States operates and looking at the conflicts right across the entire world, we've seen many politicians who have been directly involved in the genocides that have been unfolded. Madeleine Albright is famous for that remark of hers regarding the Iraqi babies,
Mhm.
where she said it was worth it. Now, this again, the entire the system, there's something fundamentally wrong with the system, number one, but also at the end of the day, exposing all of this, the hypocrisy that exists within the political leadership, not only in the United States of America, but we see it many parts around the world.
So you're absolutely right, Inayet. But I think we need to come to a point in our lives now and at this stage to ask ourselves, like, should we be surprised? We're not surprised. This has been going on for a very long time. So you expect it, you recognize it, and you can even anticipate it. It's quite that simple. It's not difficult to read these people, and it's not difficult to read the foreign policy as well. If you look at the way in which the politics goes, the question is, what are we going to do about it? And that's why I like what Mauri Saalakhan is saying about the emergence of these young Muslim individuals who are seeking political office. It is necessary for Muslims to come out to the front. And I've seen, mashallah, I have seen the minds of these young people in many of the, as minorities in many of the Western states. They're dynamic individuals, well educated, strong personality, rooted in their understanding of what needs to be done. And they're not driven by that nest egg that many of these older politicians are seeking. They're actually seeking alternate governance and to find to create that space where the state can now begin to serve its citizens. And when I say serve its citizens, it is about serving all of the people and not just the elite and the wealthy. So the fact that we're having this emergence, for me, this is a wonderful development, because I clearly remember, and Maurice, I'm sure you can elaborate on this further, post 9/11, when there was, this significant Islamophobic tide in the US, people kept on saying, before you attack Muslims, ask yourself, have you met a Muslim? Have you spoken to a Muslim? Do you know a Muslim? And now people are voting for Muslims. Isn't this fantastic? You're seeing that change, that people are actually voting for Muslim. And that's why I said to you, there is this, especially post-COVID, I do believe so. There is this rise, this search for something more sincere, for a search for spirituality, and they see it. They see it specifically in Muslim women, because Muslim women who are hijabis, they carry that identity, they carry that spirituality, and they carry that love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with them. People admire that, good people, and there's a lot of good folk in the US. People see it, they recognize it, they identify with it. Maybe they're just not strong enough to really, recognize it or speak about it publicly. So these are changes that we see. The hypocrisy is going to be there always. I don't think it's ever going to change, Inayet. The most important thing that we can wish for is to build ourselves, to make ourselves stronger, to be able to counter it and to beat it. And that's why I'm telling you, I told you right at the start, Ilhan's presence there in the Foreign Relations Committee is a sore needle. Basically, she sticks out like a sore thumb for them, a reminder of what they cannot have in their presence and in their midst. Because if you have something like that, if you have a personality like her, people are not going to believe the lies that they've been peddling. But as a believer now I'll speak as a Muslim. I'm confident, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَقُلْ جَعَلْ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلِ. Say the truth has come and falsehood will perish, because falsehood by its very nature is bound to perish. And it perishes when you have this presence, when Muslim people come to the front and show what it is to be Muslim. And so if you want to one last point, is if you want to succeed in your foreign policy interventions, which are harmful, you can't have somebody like Ilhan questioning them, raising critique, and forcing the American people to think about an alternate perspective.
Yes, El-Hajj Mauri, just looking at the reaction and looking at just looking at American society in general responding to what has happened to Ilhan Omar. Now, many of hers, and I'm sure that there are many who support her, look at her as someone who stands up, who is courageous, who speaks up, who speaks truthfully to power, someone who also comes from a minority grouping in the United States of America, someone that comes from marginalized groups, someone who represents victims of discrimination in the United States of America. And I'm sure that there are sections of American society that have expressed their support. They've even expressed a concern as to what has happened to Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, of course, of course. And quiet as it's kept, my brother, quiet as it's kept, Ilhan Omar has a significant number of Jewish supporters, especially young Jewish supporters, who are responsible for helping to return her back to that seat since 2016, and for contending with much of the anti-Semitic slurs that come her way. She has a significant support base among many of the young Jewish activists here in this country, as well as organizations like Code Pink. She has a tremendous amount of support. So I think that she's in a good position to be able to weather this this latest storm, and her removal from the Foreign Relations Committee was also not just about her, but it was also about this, the new power block in the House wanting to flex its muscles and, do things to send the message that they are now the ones in control of the House. They are the ones that are in control of the agenda that, comes up for discussion and debate. And so, she was just another convenient tool for that message to be sent as well.
Yes, Jazakallah for that. And Quraysha, also Al-Hajj, speaks about possibly, low key, because when one looks at mainstream media, obviously, I don't think they would be thriving, knowing the mainstream media in the United States of America, looking at the position of the Republicans and their views, because we know who controls media. But also, when you look at people like Ilhan Omar, very active on social media, on Twitter, and the like as well. And it is clear that this is not going to be any easy ride for the Republicans or even the mainstream media in the face of, as Al-Hajj mentioned, that many people, even of Jewish faith, that support her. And there are many, many people and young people that are, social media savvy as well. So there is opportunity as well for a person like Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, I would like to actually take a positive sentiment out of all of this, and that is that if you look at all of this, there's certainly khair in it. We say that there is goodness in it. Perhaps it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is protecting Ilhan from a very bad decision that is going to happen be taken by the Republicans, and she will be saved from that smear, and that will allow her to come back with double the strength, to perhaps take over then. and bring about the changes that are necessary. That is my vision, and I would like to believe that it's going to hold true. As for the young people, and that she has the support of the Jewish, that's why I said the three things that I mentioned earlier. There's a change in the tide is changing in the United States, in which the young Jewish people in America and I think across many states are beginning to consider the state of Israel, and they recognize that they cannot, in all good conscience, continue to support it. Firstly, because they are distant from the state. They do not have that tie with the state of Israel, apartheid Israel, that the founding fathers of apartheid Israel had with it. Secondly, they are, I think, champions of this new human rights discourse, and they want to believe that they are serving human dignity. There's also a strong movement in the United States. These are the Orthodox Jews who don't believe that the state of Israel belongs to the Jews. They believe that Jews are not entitled to a homeland of their own. And they are beginning to express more and more their opinions. So yes, all of these things are going to come together, inshallah. What we might seem like an attack or a falling apart, perhaps actually it is part of the greater plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we eventually see it, you'll see how it comes together, and to give, to bring back the voices of reason, to bring back the voices that stand up for social justice, but also to recognize these young Jewish people who are making the effort. Even Mauri spoke about Code Pink, but there's also Jewish Voices for Peace. They're a very strong lobby in the US, and they speak out continuously about these issues. You have to take your hat off to them, because they also, like Ronnie Kasrils in South Africa, they face a tremendous onslaught and backslash from the trolls of the Israeli apartheid state and the right-wing movements, but they keep up and they persevere. Ultimately, not because they're Jewish, but because they're human, and they recognize there's something fundamentally wrong in the way this is happening and the way it is being done. So we also need to move away from that identity of religion, Jewish identity, because, as you know, Inayet, and people should know by now, that the apartheid state of Israel is actually, all of the people there, they're not really Orthodox Jews or believers. They're secularists. Many of them are even atheists. They don't even know and practice their religion. They just claim this Jewish title, but they're not practicing Jews. The practicing Jews are the Orthodox Jews, like those that in the US, who hold on to their Torah, and are not the right-wing Jews who completely invert the religion, as you find, the settlers, and they're not even indigenous. They are actually from Eastern Europe, and they actually the filth of Eastern Europe, discarded by the Europeans themselves. The Europeans don't want them and are happy to see them go, and that's why they're happy to keep the apartheid state of Israel alive, because they really don't want to welcome these people back into their countries. So there's a lot happening here, and we need to find the silver lining in all of this, and I'm pretty sure that it will eventually play out.
Well, inshallah, wa makar Allah, wallahu khairul makirin. And I'm sure Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has got a plan for Ilham Omar. El-Hajj Mauri, we've got about 2 minutes. Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. We want to be also conscious of the fact that it's not just the so-called Jewish Zionist lobby in the United States. It's not just AIPAC and its affiliated organizations. It's also Christian Zionism. Christian Zionists. They're a very large and powerful influence, especially within the right-wing areas of American politics, and they are a driving force for much of this. I was reminded of that a few years back when in Boston at an annual conference where the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu was the keynote speaker. There was a demonstration that was orchestrated by Christian Zionists along with Jewish Zionists in front of the Old South Church, one of the oldest religious institutions in America. And so we want to be conscious of this and respond accordingly. The last thing I would like to say, and this is very important, if my sister Ilham Omar or my sister Rashida Tlaib, two outstanding legislators in the U.S. House of Representatives, see this broadcast, please don't forget your sister in Islam, Dr. Aafia Siddiqui. We need you to raise your voice for her.
Jazakallah for that and for raising the issue of Dr. Aafia Siddiqui. Quraysha, final thoughts on your side?
I just want to say that let's move away from trying to always analyze why they're doing this. We know why they're doing this. We know it's going to happen. What we should be asking is how are we going to counter it, and how can we beat them at their own game? Because you already you can anticipate the behavior. The secret now is to preempt that the actions and the behavior, and be ready, have an action plan, be prepared to counter what is going to come from them, and that is our success.
Well, Jazakallah to both of you, to El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan, and also to Dr. Quraysha Sooliman. Always a pleasure having both of you on Assalam Media and being part of these panel discussions that we host. We wish both of you well, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you. It's been a
Alaikum
pleasure.
salam wa rahmatullahi. Jazakallah. It has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of Wednesday Nights with myself, Inayet Wadee. Inshallah, we'll be back with you once again next week. But for now, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.